If you've ever had to hunt for an internship, you know the pain. It's not usually the coding or the interviews that get you, it's all the other stuff. The logistics, the endless searching, the tracking, the personalizing. It seriously feels like a full-time job. Well, today, we're going to break down a project that tackles this exact problem, not with a better spreadsheet, but with a way, way smarter system.
I mean, this quote from the author Mahir Sajdev just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling. You're trying to be an engineer, but you wind up spending all your time being an admin. And yeah, that's the heart of it. The author calls it grunt work. You're finding companies, digging through LinkedIn for the right contacts, trying to research them so you can write an email that doesn't sound totally generic, and then you do it all over again and again. It is slow, it is repetitive, and frankly, it's completely exhausting. So, like any good programmer, the author tried to automate bits and pieces of it. A script for this, a tool for that. But it didn't fix the real issue. As he puts it, he was still the one in the middle, manually connecting all the dots. He was the human glue, the workflow engine, and that was the real bottleneck. This realization brings up a really important question. Why can't a simple AI agent just do this? If it's just a workflow, why do these basic agent designs, the ones built on a single repetitive loop, just completely fall apart when you give them a task like this? Well, it turns out there are 4 big reasons. First off, you've got ordered stages. You have to find the company before you can find a contact there. Obvious, right? Second, you desperately need parallelism. Going through companies one by one is just painfully slow. Third, there's no human oversight. No way to step in and say, hey, stop wasting time on that bad lead. And finally, it doesn't have a durable state. It has no memory of which companies it's already hit up. A simple agent just can't juggle all 4 of these things at once. And this chart right here just perfectly illustrates the shift in thinking we need. We have to move away from that single sequential loop that gets slow and confused, and instead move toward an agent pipeline that works in parallel, is way faster, keeps information separate in isolated contexts, and, this is crucial, has checkpoints for a human to give the okay. So that's exactly what the author built. The solution is a project called DeepReach, and it's an agent pipeline built on a framework called Deep Agents. It was designed from the ground up to crush all those limitations we just talked about. Let's take a look at how you'd actually use it. The whole user experience is actually beautiful in its simplicity. You run one command. The main agent goes out and finds a list of companies based on your criteria. And then it stops. It actually pauses and asks for your approval. That's that human oversight step we were talking about. Once you say go, it spins up a whole bunch of little sub-agents to process every single approved company at the same time, in parallel. And then finally, it just drops the personalized draft emails onto your disk for a final look. Okay, so that's what it looks like from the outside, but how does this thing actually work under the hood? The whole system is built on just a few core technical ideas, or primitives, that make this whole pipeline architecture possible. Let's break them down. All right, the single most important idea here is what's called sub-agent spawning. Instead of one giant know-it-all agent trying to do everything, the system has a main agent that can create and delegate tasks to smaller, more specialized agents. You can think of it like a manager handing out assignments to their team. And this creates a really clear hierarchy. It's almost like an org chart for AIs. You've got the main orchestrator at the top, acting like the project manager. Its job is to find the companies and then spawn a company flow agent for each one. Then that agent's job is to find the right contacts and spawn even smaller contact personalization agents to do the final research and draft the email for each person. Now, the absolute genius of this structure is something the author calls context quarantine. Each little agent only gets the specific information it needs for its one job. So the agent writing an email to someone at company A never even sees the data for company B. This is huge. It prevents mistakes, it keeps the AI focused, and it makes its behavior so much more predictable. So where does all this information live? You might think it's some kind of complex database, right? Nope. The next core primitive is just an isolated file system. Each agent is basically given its own folder on your computer to use as its memory and its workspace. Super simple. And this system is split into 2 main directories. The runs folder holds all the temporary stuff for a single execution, like the draft emails. It's basically a snapshot in time. But the storage directory, that's for the durable memory that needs to stick around, like the list of companies you've already contacted. It's simple, you can look at it anytime, and there's no database to manage. And here is that safety valve we mentioned. The human-in-the-loop feature is just a built-in checkpoint. The workflow literally pauses and lets you review what it's done so far, like the list of companies it found, so you can decide whether to continue or maybe change directions. This gives you all the control and stops the system from going down some useless and potentially expensive rabbit hole.
Okay, now this might be the most surprising and frankly the coolest insight from the whole project. You'd think a system this powerful would need a ton of complicated code to orchestrate everything, right? But it turns out most of the logic isn't in the code. It's in the prompts. This is the key. The system prompts themselves are treated like architecture blueprints. They actually define the different stages of the workflow, the order they run in, and even the rules for how to delegate tasks. So you're not just writing instructions for the AI, you are declaratively designing the system itself right in plain text. So let's zoom out for a second. What does all of this really mean? Because after building DeepReach, the author's big takeaway was that this whole pattern is about so much more than just finding an internship or writing a clever prompt. And here's where it all just clicks into place. Each of those core ideas we talked about directly solves one of the initial problems we had with simple agents. Subagents, they solve context isolation. Delegation, that gives you natural parallelism. The file system, that creates a durable, easy-to-inspect state. And the checkpoints, they provide that absolutely essential human oversight. It's a complete, elegant design pattern. And this leads us to the final, really powerful idea. For the last couple of years, so much of the focus has been on prompt engineering, right? On trying to craft that one perfect set of instructions for a single giant AI. But maybe, just maybe, that's not the right way forward for these complex, real-world tasks. The future isn't just a smarter prompt, it's a smarter system. A system of specialized agents that can collaborate, delegate, and work in parallel, with us humans guiding them at the most important moments. Which really makes you wonder, what tedious, multi-step second job in your own life is really just a workflow waiting for its own agent pipeline to be built?